How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be doing a remake of a video that I made a few months ago about pitching with a baitcaster. I made this video before. I just kind of wasn't really happy with the content I included and the sound and the video quality. It was all kind of terrible. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on that, and now that I got my GoPro, I'm going to be able to do it a little bit better than I did before. So to start off, I'm going to talk about my tackle. This is a 7-foot medium heavy action rod. And usually when I'm pitching, you know, when I'm fishing for those close fish, I like to use a medium action rod, but this is what I got with me. So I like at least a 7-foot, because 7 foot you can control a little bit better. And this is a 7-1-1 bait casting reel, because when you're pitching to those fish up along the bank, you can reel it in real fast, get another pitch out, and, you know, go back and catch those fish. So with that being said, that is my tackle, and now I'm going to go into a little bit you know, about the pitch and stuff. I got a 1/2 ounce Strike King jig. I use this as my practice jig. It's always good to have a practice jig, because your jigs are going to be weedless. Jigs are cheap, and so this is what I like to throw around my yard. So we're going to get started here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to talk about are your reel settings. When it comes to reel settings, you're just going to want to set your bait caster as normal. Set your spool tensioner to where that bait is falling, you know, at a pretty gradual rate, I would guess. Kind of just like that when it's on free. And then your braking system, it's all personal preference about what you want to do when it comes to your braking system. A lot of people like it on free. A lot of people like to, you know, max it out. If you are new to flipping and pitching with a bait caster, I would highly recommend putting your braking system to work. If you use it on free, you're probably going to backlash a bunch, so it's probably going to be a lot easier for you to set that braking system pretty high. Alright, so now I'm going to get into the pitch a little bit, and you know, once you learn how to do it, it is a fairly simple cast. It does take some getting used to, and I mean, if you're new to a bait caster, you're probably going to backlash a little bit, you know, but it happens to everybody. So first things first is basically I'm going to take my jig in my one hand, and I'm just going to hold it as kind of like a support, I guess. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to release my reel, and I'm going to keep my thumb on that reel. Now I'm holding this in my one hand, but what I'm going to want to do is, instead of throwing it, I'm going to let my rod guide it out of my hand. It's just a little bit easier that way, because if you decide to throw the jig, it doesn't really work all that well. So what I do is I just basically let my rod guide the jig out of my hand. So what you're going to want to do, you're going to hold your thumb on the spool here. You're just going to gradually let it go. And what I like to do is, when I'm pitching, I want to try to keep my jig at no more than a foot above the water. What I basically like to do is to let that jig hover above the water, kind of like such. And what that's going to do is it's going to make a quiet entry into the water, and it's not going to spook those fish. Now, the one exception to this would be if you were, you know, if you were punching mats, let's say, you're going to need to get a little bit of height, and, you know, you might want that to go 10 feet in the air just so you can punch through that mat. But for the most part, I like it just to not do that. I like it just to hover above the water. If I can grab the jig, just kind of hover. Not like that either, but you get what I'm saying. That's the one kind of pitch. You don't even have to hold the jig if you want. You can take, you know, you can do, I cannot pitch today. Oh my goodness. You can do it just a one hand, simple thing. Apparently I'm pretty out of practice, but you can do it with one hand as well. I know I've seen some people will take their jig and do kind of a sidearm type of thing, side cast, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm not very good at that. I probably should be, considering that I fish out of my kayak a lot, but you know, it's all personal preference about what you want to do. So now, the one advantage to having a 7-foot or more rod is you can also get a fairly good amount of distance in a pitch. If you can see that cement block in front of me, that's probably about 30 feet in front of me, and I can flip out to that. I can't really get it to where it's just hovering, but I can pitch out. I said flip, didn't I? I can pitch out to that, and that 7 foot is going to give you an extra distance, which is nice. If you don't see any fish around, you know, it's not bad to have your jig or whatever bait you're throwing go more than, you know, that foot or so above the water. That's just what I prefer, just to kind of keep it low to the water. But if you can see those fish, you're going to want to keep it very low and have that jig basically just hover above the water, and it's not going to scare those fish. Now, I addressed this in my previous flipping and pitching video, but I'm going to address it again. There is a difference between flipping and pitching, and I see a lot of guys make this mistake. Pitching is where you take the jig and you actually throw it out there. Flipping is where you take an excess line like this, you hold the line out and you flip that jig out there, hence the term flipping. That's what flipping is, and pitching is a different thing. I see a lot of guys that say, oh, well, we're gonna flip out to these bass here, which that is pitching. It drives me insane, but I don't say anything about it. I mean, whatever you want to say. But yes, there is a difference. It's not the same thing. So I guess I'll touch on flipping a little bit. It's really simple. Anybody can do it. Basically, you take your line between your first rod eye and your reel, and you hold that line. That line's what's going to control your bait. And what you're going to do is basically just guide it into the water. It's a very quiet entry. It's typically used for fish that you can see very close, or if you're going to do it in heavy cover. It's not really a technique that I use all that much, but you know, sometimes it does come in handy if you see fish that are close, if they're, you know, too close to make a pitch out to that would be quiet anyways. So, you know, that technique does come in handy. I know a lot of guys will use it for things such as, you know, flipping into heavy cover if they can see those fish, if they can't see those fish. It's not something I use all that much. Now, it's always good to practice honing your skills. As you can see, I got a bucket out there and I've got the opening facing me. The reason I have it like that is so I can practice keeping that bait low to the water, which is not what I'm doing here. But I like to practice keeping it low to the water so that once again, you can have that silent entry. So basically like that would have been a pretty good pitch. That bucket is less than a foot in diameter, so you know it's going to keep that bait low to the water. You're going to have a quiet entry, and I like to practice this, you know, regularly to keep my pitching skills honed in, I guess you could say. So I guess that basically concludes my little pitching and flipping rant / educational tutorial video. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hope you're able to learn something from it. And always feel free to like, comment, and subscribe.